go back to gas, sell ICE vehicles, back to gas, back to gas. Oil prices going through the roof. Now, are we back to EVs?
Hello, Diana. How are you today?
Hey, Jamie, how are you?
Hanging in there, hanging in there. It's been a wild week here in the news biz. AAA said it was the biggest 1 week jump in gas prices since Russia's invasion of Ukraine 4 years ago. Prices are now the highest they've been in 11 months. We know that high gasoline prices suppress demand and tend to push people toward more fuel efficient vehicles. My view is that consumers overreact to short term swings in prices at the pump, but I don't get to tell people how to spend their money. What are you hearing from dealers and other folks? What do you think is the outcome of this, the higher gas prices and maybe the war overall?
Jamie, I just think it's batshit crazy these days. I mean, like literally, the tax credits on EVs went away, right? Like we literally were like pushing EV, push, 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 push. And then boom, credits gone. Everybody go back to gas, sell ICE vehicles, back to gas, back to gas. Oil prices going through the roof. Now, are we back to EVs? That's what everybody's talking. Like, are we really going to do this with gas now? So, and then of course, with EVs, then there's the thing about who owns the most chips. So here we go again. So I think the dealers and all the auto community, at least me, I'm trying to figure out which way to pivot.
Yeah, the change in tariff policies, the change in EV and environmental policies, the change in foreign policies. It's a lot to digest. I think the hope is maybe the hostilities settle down in a few weeks, doesn't drag out into something, a long protracted war, but you never know. The first Iraq Gulf War, started in the early 90s. It really triggered high prices and a recession, depressed auto sales for a couple of years. So if it goes badly, it could really go badly, both, of course, for real people's lives and for the economy.
I mean, I find it super interesting, and you were the one that actually told me this. But there's so much change over with all the CEOs on in the auto industry, but also on the vendor side. If you look at it, whether it was Pure Cars, they switched over their CEO. You've got JD Power, they switched over their C-suite CEO. Many people left there. You have Cars.com, CEO, C-suite. It's like I don't even know the new people anymore. And a lot of them are coming in with that auto retail experience, which is also very much surprising me. What do you think?
Yeah, it's a mix of people, some of them with sales experience, but others more on the product development or engineering side. It's always been a push-pull about, who gets to lead the companies. There was a study recently by Alex Partners. Sometimes in the auto industry, it feels like everyone's against us. But this global study across all industries said, yeah, everyone's against us. More specifically, they found that the auto industry is the most disrupted industry in the world for the second year in a row. And I think that does show in the turnover of all these CEOs. It's been, just for global automakers, it's 9 new CEOs, from Jose Munoz taking over Hyundai last January to, Kenta Khan becoming CEO of Toyota later this spring. And some of it's been a generational change, with younger CEOs like Ivan Espinosa at Nissan and Antonio Filosa at Stellantis, but it's a tremendous amount of global market share that is under new leaders compared to a year and a half ago.
And the vendors in the
And
automotive industry. And
yeah,
this is the thing, nobody's saying they had a bad year, but why did they switch over the full C-suite on some of the vendors and the automakers? It must have not been a great year in 25.
a lot of challenges, and especially with all that turbulence, hey, some people would be like, I don't want to mess with this anymore. And others maybe get asked to move on because the results aren't what they want, even if maybe it's more about the macro factors than their own individual performances.
But yeah, VW got a new CEO. Audi, did you hear about Audi? Their CEO is going to China. They have a new CEO coming in from Canada. Lots of changes.
How does all that turbulence in the leadership trickle down to the dealers? Is it that they don't know who to call. They don't have responsive people. They don't have relationships necessarily with the people at all the levels in the company.
I mean, I think that they do it on purpose for a few reasons on the OEM side, where they switch over people. And what I've seen with the OEMs is after a few years, you always have to go to a different role, a new role. From a vendor perspective, it's because I think relationships get really locked in. And I think they do it so that there's other people that are decision makers in those relationships in terms of who to actually work with. It keeps things, I think, compliant by not having one vendor where, one person is really the decision maker in terms of signing their RFPs and all that. So I could see the turnover and why that happens. But I think from my perspective, it's just when I have a problem, and I've had problems because think about it, the JD Powers of the world, the Coxes of the world, the big boys, the S&P Global of the world, which is another interesting thing that just happened because of the spinoff of S&P Auto. I don't know who to call. This is like my frustration is like it always goes bad. Like think about it because at the end of the day, nothing is perfect and technology is ever changing. And there's always hiccups and something always goes down. I mean, this is my frustration, and I believe this in my own business. If you don't take care of your customers, you don't deserve to have those customers. If you don't pick up those calls, you don't deserve to have their business. And overall, my frustration level is I can't get through. If I am the CEO and I write an email because I'm having a problem with your tech and I can't get you on the phone or I can't get you to resolve the issue, you have a problem. That's a big indicator of a problem.
Yeah, those relationships matter on the, you know, B2B side. And of course, just like they do on the B2C when you're talking to customers and they need to know that they have someone they can come talk to. And those relationships matter up and down all these companies.
And I understand when dealers are screaming because sometimes I'm screaming and I'm like, you can't get them on the phone. You can't get somebody to care. And it's just so frustrating.
Another thing that's frustrating, we've talked a lot about, and because everyone is talking about it, is affordability. February sales again kind of showed that strain on consumers. Sales were down from last year, and a really rapidly growing number of people, more than 1 in 8, who finance their purchases are going with 84-month loans. I'm sure it's a tough trade-off when you're trying to do the deal, right? Like you want to make that sale today and you want to get it at a payment that the customer can handle. But then the downside is they're going to be underwater and out of the market for a long time. How do you look at that kind of challenge?
I find it super interesting because if you look at the OEMs that are doing really well, Toyota, Honda, Lexus, Hyundai, there's one thing common that I see overall, and this is the most interesting part of the whole thing. When I look at 17,500 US franchise websites and I actually see discounts on them, I know they're going to get a lot of business. I see it. If you actually have a manufacturer that basically screaming, hey, I'm going to actually address the affordability issue, you are going to have a lot more consumers going to those websites. So I find it super interesting in the roughest of climates. The two OEMs that I'm noticing the lack of inventory are it's Toyota and Lexus. They lack inventory all the way across. And I think they're addressing this affordability issue because they have a uniform way of actually projecting through their dealer community that they're going to discount right on those websites.
With so little inventory, they don't have to discount that much. Where I'm seeing a lot of action has been Ram offering no interest loans, trying to take some share from GM and Ford by offering these discounts and really getting competitive out there and getting that message out.
So I think it's interesting when the OEM's doing those discounts, and definitely that costs a ton more money. But the dealers also have to discount too. My frustration is, as much marketing that actually people do out there, I can't believe that the website doesn't have their specials on it. And I see it time and time and again. And right now, you have to address the affordability issue. And I'm not saying like Paragon's one of the best stores in the world and Honda, and they are. But if you look at the top Toyota, Honda, Lexus stores, you go to their websites, you will see that it screams affordability by lowering those prices for the consumer. And I think they have something there. Because also, when you go to Amazon, that's the whole first page. It addresses affordability.
Well, because of that, because of the high price of new vehicles and consumers feeling strained overall, we have more folks turning to used. And in that environment, GM says it's trying to get more out of that business for its dealers by having all of the Chevy, Buick, and GMC dealers use their CarBravo platform to sell certified pre-owned vehicles with GM's warranty. Diana, what do you think about that? Does it take away too much flexibility from dealers?
I love it. You know why? That's how Hyundai got their business back. Do you remember when Hyundai launched their 10-year, 100,000-mile warranty program because the car was garbage and it just kept breaking down all over the place? And now they are an OEM that is fierce. I see it. I see it because when I see all the data, I see how fierce they're becoming against also Toyota and Honda. So I see that that's working. And actually, that put them back on the map. Do you remember that, Jamie?
Oh yeah. Well, it was important because they were improving the quality at the same time. So they had their first cars came to the US, had a lot of problems. They really focused on trying to make their quality better, really following the Toyota path of, constant improvement, making the decision for quality over everything else. They put that big warranty on it to try to give customers the assurance, hey, give us another chance. Let us try. And then people got in them, and then they didn't break down. It didn't cost them a fortune to cover all that. So yeah, that was really important for them. That was more on the new side, but we're seeing this more and more with used older vehicles. The big advantages GM's able to offer, obviously being on a national online platform, you really expand the reach. Some dealers have said they've really increased their sales by going to CarBravo. But the other thing is with this new program, they're going to cover vehicles that aren't just GM vehicles. I think GM will analyze them and figure out what it's going to cost, but they will cover other brands,
What?
and they're
What?
offering tiers up to 15 years old. So, there
What?
other brands have done, Honda and others have done up to 10 years, but they're protecting a lot more vehicles and trying to make their dealers really competitive on these CPOs.
Okay, I want to ask a question there because, like, I have to make sure this is accurate information, Jamie. I know coming from you it will be. Are you saying that if I drive a Honda and I go to a General Motors service department, they're going to service my vehicle? I'm shocked. And the main reason I'm shocked is because I've been in the auto industry over 30 years. I don't usually get shocked. I could usually figure out the plays before they happen. And this would be a shocker. And it makes so much sense because I remember that I would go to dealers, I'd be like, you're servicing Honda, Toyota, Nissan. You are already servicing all those vehicles because of used. Why can't you advertise that too? And they would be so afraid to basically advertise all makes and models. But I'm like, from a used perspective, you already do it, guys. You do it. Why do you let them go to an independent? Why not take that business if you can? Because if you do, it gives you so much more power to be able to sell them a new vehicle in the future. And
Yeah.
so, if General Motors was the first one to do this, I predict many of the other OEMs will consider following it because the dealers have the ability to do it. They just have to order the parts.
And so, especially then, if you buy a used Honda or Toyota from your local Chevy dealer, you take it back there to get some work done. Maybe you find a Chevy you'd want to buy new, or you at least get to sell them a car and service that car.
And imagine, Jamie, if we had a world where the OEM dealers were able to actually get some of their prices as low as some of the independents as just like a price leader to get them in the door, that would be game changing. Like match the damn oil change price of an independent. How about that? And that way, then you have an opportunity to keep those customers. Just have a price leader that's low enough to actually bring them all in. But if GM is going to put a plan together for all GM stores, they're going to crush it. And recently, I think they've been doing some innovation at General Motors.
From Reuters, it says starting in June, and that GM says it will increase the number of used car sales by adding non-GM models and older vehicles to the system. So very exciting.
I mean, that is a game changer. That's it. I mean, and honestly, I wonder and I believe that this gives the opportunity if they did proper data mining between service all the way to sales, this is your opportunity to sell a ton more vehicles back to that store.
Some of the analysts were suggesting that the move could be designed really to counter Carvana because it's growing so fast, up 43% last year, sold almost 600,000 vehicles. Carvana's been growing. It's also been investing in dealerships and selling new cars. They've acquired 6 Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram stores, selling the 4 US Stellantis brands just in about a year. So the latest one's in Boston. Diana, what do you think Carvana's up to? Why do you think they're trying to do this?
I mean, I think you always have to decide whether you're going to be in the inventory business or not, right? Because if you're going to be a data aggregator and a marketer, and if you really think about it, and I've said this to all the dealers out there, my frustration with dealerships out there is if you actually did marketing and you did it consistently and you did it all the time and represent your brand, you don't need third parties in this business. It never made sense to me, Jamie, ever that because they couldn't actually represent the market well enough digitally, that all these third-party aggregators came in where they don't own the inventory. They don't own the inventory. All they're doing is putting a price of your vehicle. They're putting all the competition with you out there. So what do I think about it? This is what I think about it, Jamie. I don't think they should exist. And to me, they're not the ones that actually understand the auto market. Do you really think they know how to run dealerships? I don't think so. I think it's a long shot at best. I think you have the dealers running the business side of operations, and I've always believed in that.
I mean, I'm curious about it because I think we saw, Techion when they were pretty new as a DMS, bought a couple of stores, partly as a lab to experiment, try to use their DMS while they were still forming it, trying to fly the plane while they build it, but also to really gain a deeper understanding of how dealerships work so they could work more closely with them. It's probably different with Carvana because they're not working with dealerships, but I wonder if it's more about trying to learn or if it's more about just, footprint and having more facility, like kind of like the Odessa acquisition really seemed to be more about processing more cars. And maybe with these 6 big stores, they can try to process more stuff.
I mean, I like one thing about the whole model, and I actually like it even with the auto market. I feel like it ups the game for dealers, right? Like monopolies form, and you see them all over the place. And you see them also on the vendor side, the monopolies. But what happens when you got a monopoly is people stop trying. And when people stop trying, innovation stops for those industries. And I always believe in innovation. And in order for innovation to always happen, I believe the little guys always have to come out. Now, I'm not saying Carvana is a little guy, but I think there's a smaller Carvana that's probably also forming as we speak, and
Mhm.
they are innovating in order to actually grab the market. Listen, there
Or
was Blockbuster at one time, right? And there was, a lot of companies that went out of business because they didn't innovate. And so I think it ups the game in auto, and I love it.
bringing it back to the GM thing, right? You talked about, seeing some innovation at GM. So here they are trying to have a real national platform and putting their own warranties behind it in a way that can really make them competitive and stand out. And you don't expect to see that from such a big, old company, but there they are, really adopting some new models.
And I love it for one reason, Jamie, okay? Because I remember I sold cars back in 1989, okay? And I remember back then, people were always buying Lincoln, Ford, General Motors, Stellantis vehicles, right? I remember those were hot cars. But I also remember they all got cocky at one point, Quality didn't matter because they used to go out there and go, Americans buy American cars. Guess what? The Americans said, screw you. You basically, your car breaks down every 5,000 miles. I'm getting a Toyota, I'm getting a Honda, and they started to take over the auto market. And you know what? I think arrogance is what gets rid of these giant OEMs and brings them down to the ground. Because what Americans want is quality. They don't care if you're an American company if you don't bring quality with it. And if they're going to stamp quality back, you won't have Ford. Do you remember the market used to call the Explorers the exploders because the tires would explode? I mean, we went through it all and it really harmed the American lives. And so I want the American companies to come back, but I want them to think about quality and building back their business to take back market share.
Yeah, it's the American consumer has always cared more about value than about the nationality of the vehicles they want. I think it's part of why there is sort of that pull for the Chinese because there are people out there who just say, "Hey, I want a $10,000 EV," and they're not always thinking about all the other implications that go with that. But that's the way a lot of American consumers think. They want the best car for their money, and they don't really care about the policy implications.
Yeah, I mean, look at what happened to TikTok. I mean, the government was like, get TikTok out of here. And people were like, I'm using it anyway because it gives me quality of life, right? And then they had to figure out how to keep it in this country and make it safe. But overall, you see, that's what I agree with you, Jamie. People want quality.
That's a great place to wrap it up for this auto retail intelligence report. Diana, thank you so much.
Thank you, Jamie.